This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome to the CPA meeting for December 13th. I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 16th.
Motion to approve the minutes for November 16th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have to do, since Ken's online, we have to do a roll call. Good.
Andy,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Greg,
Minutes, yes.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess. Aye. Joe's absent, John's absent, Ken.
Yes.
And Scott.
That's everybody. Oh, Scott, yes. Public speak. Now, if you're here to speak to a specific application, I'll allow you to do that at the time. John's here. But if you're here just to speak in general, now's the time to speak.
I have something I'd like to
Well,
say.
Okay, but I saw the mayor first.
Okay, go ahead. I was just, not connected to any application currently, but I would like to recognize that this is, Chairman Riff's last CPA meeting. And, I think he will go down in the annals of Easthampton history as the grandfather of CPA and, the many projects that he.
She's saying I'm old.
No. Look, I'm a grandmother. I'm young. You're young. But seriously, thank you very much for your service on the council and finance and for the years of CPA and really bringing it into the forefront of Easthampton's vitality, continued vitality. I think we did a lot of breaking, cutting edge work. Certainly, Jess Allen knows that, and you were a huge part of that. So thank you very much, Dan. I know it's a lot of hours in work.
You're here. Thank you, Dan.
You were all welcome. I'm grateful for the kind of committees I've had over the years. And lately it's been one committee because I haven't had many changes. So thank you. Jess, you wanted to say something?
I was going to say the same thing that the mayor said. So I just wanted to
This is
say
a conspiracy.
heartfelt thank you for all of the time and the energy and the work that you've put in, not only to this committee, but city council. If I am correct, you are the last remaining original city councilor who is still serving. And so I think that's a very momentous acknowledgement and thank you for your decades of service for the city of Easthampton. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public speak? Connie, this is City Councilor Connie Dennis.
I'll save that for the week. So I just want to, there's just a lot of people here, so I just want to draw your attention to that we have a municipal leadership academy that we are offering. So it's a 10-week program to educate city residents on kind of city matters, but also you have the opportunity to be in front of department heads and things like that and learn about the various departments of the city, learn about their budget, et cetera, et cetera. But it will also be an opportunity of information about the various committees, commissions, and things of that nature that as a resident, right? And so there's an opportunity there to do that. So it's on the city webpage. There was also, if you're on Facebook, there was another press release for it, and on there to register to do that. So we've extended the deadline until January 31st. Start January 4th, and it'll go 10 weeks. So we want to encourage people. If you know people who are interested in that, please sign up for that. It'll be a great opportunity.
Okay, anybody else for public speak? not on an item on the agenda. Thank you. I'm gonna move to Hadel. Hadel wants to tell us about a minimum undesignated fund balance.
So me and Jamie and Mayor's have been talking about, the possible appropriation coming up, and which is gonna lead our undesignated fund balance for CPA at zero, almost zero. There are communities who practice that, but it's not recommended because there are some uncertainty with the revenue. So let's say we don't collect all the taxes, which is going to contribute to CPA at the end of the fiscal year. What if state revenues are not going to come the way we estimated or what the state promised initially, but after the budget is passed, it's been reduced, and this is one of the years where the state revenues are reduced than what they originally promised. There might be some provision, but we don't know at this point. Other things which can happen is like we give abatements to residents if they're eligible for abatement. That abatement cost comes out of receivable account, which ultimately hits our undesignated fund balance. So if we have a $0 in undesignated fund balance, and at the end of the fiscal year, that amount goes negative because of any of the factor playing in, what it will do is it will hit our free cash. So as a big picture, we should always keep somewhat cushion in our undesignated fund balance. Looking at the possible, like, what would be the best practice? It's like, there are multiple ways to think it this way. It's like, I feel comfortable with $120,000 being the minimum or about, or somebody else feel 400,000 would be. But what's the real number which we should be putting as the undesignated fund balance for this fiscal year is what we agreed upon is 120,000, which is, Jamie, was it at 10% of
It was the 10% set aside.
Set
So
aside.
it would be equivalent to like a fourth set aside.
This is something we would do at the budget cycle as well as this year. What do we have to do now to, and I think it's gonna be 118 if the pool application is approved. It'll
So
be about 118 left in the undesignated fund. So what do we need to do? Do we need to vote this in?
it's not the vote at this point, it's just follow the best practice rule at this point. Mayor has recommended that we make it as a policy as part of what we are doing citywide from the DLS. That policy, I think we have to follow. I don't know what the steps are going to be at this point, but I think that recommendation from financial standpoint of view is going to come forward to CPA committee, and that will bring a vote. I don't know the steps yet, but we are working towards making that as a standard practice year after year after year. But for now, just for this fiscal year, we're asking that we maintain at least 120 plus minus 1,000, 2,000. It's not a big deal, but it's just the best practice is not to make that undesignated fund balance as a zero.
So just to review, members, what Hadel is suggesting is that we decide as a policy, you decide as a committee, not to go below 118 in the undesignated fund balance, should we vote for the pool, which means there's no more money to be spent until the end of the fiscal year, because we're very concerned, or she's very concerned, that revenues may not come in as we expected. Although I thought Jamie did a good job of being conservative, we can't be certain until all the revenues are collected, which includes the local taxes. So I think it's a great idea. It's a policy. I would recommend that the committee decide now if we're going to follow this policy. And when you go to the budget next year, Jamie will have that set aside. A minimum somehow.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, you and Hadel will figure that out. So committee, do you have any questions about this? Hadel, wait,
I can wait for after the committee. I just want to be clear that this is one of many financial policies that we're doing over in the city to protect. We've had a couple of really great fiscal years as far as being very conservative. But like what Jamie said the last meeting, this is one of the first years ever that we got close. The budgeting by Jamie and the rest of the council is beyond reproach and wonderful, but we're thinking ahead to less light years, and to have when these unexpected things happen, we want to plan. And candidly, I want to be able to tell our bond counsel and our financial analysts that we're thinking about reserve, not only for the reserve accounts or capital, but also CPA. And the conversation that we had last meeting, as well as Jamie's continued forecasting, and not really kind of like we're doing well. There's no reason we ever have to go back a step if we could present a policy like Hadel has just talked about. So I don't want to, nothing's wrong. And everything's on, it's more of another little step of rainy day fund. I know that's the wrong word, but it just in case.
Did you want to say something else?
Yes, I just wanted to add one more thing. I received CPA is one of the forms which I prepare when I do tax rate recap to show them that we are not in deficit. So it just does all the calculation, and we don't need to raise taxes and all the other details which comes out of that tax rate recap. Our DOR representative sent me this email, which is going to back up what I said about the state revenue can be the original budget versus actual receipt could be different. And this year is the case. So he just sent, said, hi, Hadel, just an FYI, A4, which is the tax rate recap form for CPA. The fiscal year 24 actual distribution is $250,827. The estimate on the sheet is $100,000. I just want to of this revenue shortfall and recommend that you appropriate from the CPA budget a reserve to cover this potential revenue deficit if needed. You did estimate conservatively on the surcharge, so there may be enough revenue coming in to cover the state match shortfall. So for this year, we'll be fine with other category. But as I said, like if we estimated $410,000 in state revenue, budget changed at the state level, and now our distribution is going to be only $250,000. So we are fine at this point, but it will be helpful. It's critical to not make that a designated fund balance as zero. That's all I want to do.
Committee members, questions?
Yeah, I mean,
What? Oh, go ahead.
Right.
I'll get to you next, Ken.
Okay.
so, I mean, I think this is an important discussion, and I think we should adopt a policy, and I think we should have a robust conversation about the policy before we adopt it. So I'm not really sure whether I'm prepared to, decide on a policy this evening. But I do think it might be helpful this is kind of a liquidity management issue, like making sure we have enough funds, right? Enough cash. But I think there is a difference between funds and cash. I think oftentimes when we look at these balances, we're thinking there's cash in a bank account somewhere backing up the balances that we're looking at. And that's not necessarily the case. But can you speak to that difference of cash versus funds, just so that we all are on the same page about that difference and how it works in the city? Because ultimately, I'm a finance person. I think of this as liquidity management. I think of this as a timing issue. I think of it as a necessary buffer on some level to be thinking about things like abatements and pullbacks. So I think it's a legitimate question to have, but I think for most people in this room, we think cash, funds, they're equivalent. Help, and even for me, I don't fully understand how it works on the city side. So if you could just help us out with that difference.
So undesignated fund balance is the total, it's a hierarchy. There is a percentage revenue and expense closest to the undesignated fund balance. So the values we have in fund for CPA. Appropriation goes out of those accounts for the specific project. Those are assigned. So that, let's say there is $1 million, 200 for another fund project, 200 for second project. It's assigned. It is not spent yet, but we have to pump that for a specific project. that shows on the books and it reduces the undesignated fund balance. So if it's $1 million there, 400,000 is already assigned for specific projects. We have 600,000 left in undesignated fund balance. However, in the bank, we will have $1 million because we haven't spent that project at this point. So that's where it's not the cash flow issue, it's about like maintaining the minimum level in the account. Does that answer the question?
Is there, I mean, because I don't really know this, is there a specific bank account for CPA?
Yes.
Okay,
The reason is that whatever the interest is earned on the money for CPA, that has to go to the fund of the CPA.
so it's been segregated by having its own bank account.
Yes. And every month our treasurer turns over the receipt batch, which has the interest for that account on the money which is available. It's supposed to be the CPA, which also closes as a revenue part to the designated balance.
So that money builds until the end of the fiscal year, and that's when it gets deposited in the account.
No, it gets deposited every month as a part of the bank reconciliation and the receipt turnover. And it is part of the running balance of undesignated fund balance. But it has its own line item. So if you see the revenue report for CPA, it has its own line item.
Ken, you wanted to say, I had to mute you for a minute. There was some feedback.
Can you hear me now? Awesome. Just so I'm clear about the liquidity, the 118,000 or 120,000, will that affect our votes tonight for the 385 Main Street, and the Nantucket pool? I mean,
The pool will come out of undesignated.
okay,
Which would leave 118. If we vote yes to the pool, it'll leave 118 in the undesignated.
okay,
And in the back of our heads, we have to think that that's it. We can't use that money going forward.
okay,
We need to reserve it.
okay.
That's what Hadel is, as I understand it, that's what Hadel's recommended. Anybody else from the committee? I think Greg brings up a good point. We can set a policy to have this done. I think you should do it at the next committee level. And if there's more questions, ask Hadel. But in the back of your heads, after tonight, there's no more money in undesignated to be spent this fiscal year. Does everybody understand that? We're reserving it just on the committee level. Okay? I recommend what Hadel's saying as a budgetary thing moving forward. However, that can be decided.
And we can set, I mean, this is for future conversation, but we can set a policy that is based on a percentage of, surcharge receipts. It could be a fixed dollar amount. Like, we have some flexibility, I believe,
Yes.
in doing that, and establishing what that correct threshold would be is something that we should look at in a more robust conversation.
Yeah, and I think, since we have a long meeting, I'd like to end this conversation with the fact that since we won't have much money to spend, you won't have much money to spend, that kind of robust conversation could happen at the next meeting. I'm just being practical. Also, I've been here since 5 o'clock, so.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Hadel.
Quick question. So the running balance that Jamie provided me, are we talking about 379? You have to look for
No, it's 318.
So you're asking about the park.
part, yeah.
Yeah, so the 379 was shown as that was the placeholder that John Mason gave us.
Yeah.
And it's not the final bid amount.
It's in there.
I think the bid came in at like 365.
365.
And the CPA, based off the recommendation, would be able to fund 200,000 of that.
200, not full
increases.
Correct.
Okay, that's where I was,
The current fund balance, according to Jamie, is 318,948.52. You take 200 out of that, that leaves 118. That's where I'm getting that from.
thank you.
Okay? All right, moving forward. I recommend, Jamie, that you put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Community Builders, Kestrel Land Trust. Now, we've had a very nice presentation. And we have in front of you, everybody, you have a Kestrel Land Trust Community Builders project funding agreement. Now, I guess I'll be the one to sign this. When we both sign this, are you with? Okay, what's your name again?
Julia Spinell.
Julia. When we both sign this is kind of like a contract in the sense that all of these parameters are in here for that purpose. The red lines are the things that Jamie and I guess Julia and Mark put out. This is the one we're talking about, everybody on the committee. Now, Ken, you're gonna have to go to your, and John, you're gonna have to go to your files to find these.
Okay,
Jamie emailed them to us so you can look at it.
Yeah, no problem.
okay.
Jamie, is there anything in here that? I think this is good. I don't see it. 10 acres of land and the remaining 43 acres to open space conversation. That's what we talked about. That's the split. That's excellent.
There's a recommend, Mark came up here at one meeting one to me, plus or minus 10 acres, plus or minus 43 acres.
You want plus or minus in there?
Simply because we don't have the final survey done for the property yet, so we're drawing basically a line.
Okay, does everybody see that in item 9? Where it says 10 acres, it's going to say plus or minus.
And we say approximately.
Or approximate, either one is fine.
Approximately.
For both.
Plus or minus just sends it in an, an infinite directive.
So both for the 10 acres and the 43.
Approximately for both.
Great, thank you.
As far as I'm concerned, we've had a great deal of discussion on this at the last meeting. Does anybody have any questions, committee members? I'm going to say as chair that one of the things that I pride myself with is trying to get the committee to understand that our tenants on affordable housing are absolutely priority. And this project is wonderful because it does two things. It preserves open space, which is one of our tenants, and it gives us affordable housing. It's a lot of money, but we set aside the money for this purpose. So I am strongly in favor of this. That's all I'm going to say. So committee members, well, let me ask, does anybody in the public, I'll give you like a minute to talk. If you want to say something about this project, now's the time. Raise your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shira Simon, longtime resident and member of Easthampton Fair and Affordable Housing Partnership. I am here to represent said partnership and say that you guys have our full support. We love the project. We think it's beautiful and it is fully in line. We would like to remind the committee, it is fully in line with the housing production plan that we put out 2-3 years ago.
In the corner?
I'm Marty Klein, I'm representing Pasco Conservation Trust. I just wanted to make 3 points endorsing this project. Number 1, it combines housing and affordable housing and land use creation, which is truly smart growth. 2 partners, Kestrel and Community Builders, each with many successful projects in their history. 3, Easthampton will be something that this city can truly be proud of for decades to come. It's a great project and I urge you to fund it. Thank you.
All right, I have 2 people virtually that want to speak. Anybody else in the room? State your name, please.
Ann Holstern, live on Mother Street, and I'm a member of the board of Kestrel Land Trust. And just like to say that as I sense from other people here, think this is just a wonderful project in terms of what it's doing. And it's not that widely known in town, but the people who do know about it seem to be like so excited about it because it's such a great project. And I just like to hold that up as opposed to, oh, a few people around town that aren't so happy with other development possibilities. So,
Ma'am?
Mary Desplain, I live on Treehouse Circle. I used to work for Kestrel. And I think this is a win-win with conservation and affordable housing. I'm so glad that the committee, or at least Dan, is in support of the project, and hopefully the rest of the committee.
Then Jeff.
I'm Katie Carr. I also live on Mutter Street, and I'm a new employee of Kestrel Land Trust. And in fact, this project is one of the reasons I was excited about saying yes to the job offer. Having this organization do this kind of innovative project in my city is so incredibly exciting. And I'm excited to be part of it as an employee, and I'm excited that it's happening in this town. And I think it is exactly what we need to look for going forward to address both the housing crisis and the climate crisis that's happening. And working together from different sectors is really exciting, and I want to see more of it.
Jeff.
Thanks. I'm Jeff Bagg. I'm the planning director. I spoke last time, so I'm not going to repeat what I said last time, which was all positive about the project. I think just my opportunity would be for the CPA committee to just remind the committee that this project and others will have to continue to come back to you. So just, I think this project is in phase one. This project has other phases that will also require, like for the actual construction of the housing portions will most likely come back to CPA again for that. So I just wanted to kind of keep reminding the committee that there will be other requests. The cost of housing construction is just going so high that the CPA support will be sort of really important moving forward as well for this project. And there are others coming forward as well in the next couple of years. So the CPA will be kind of getting used to allocating bigger chunks of dollars for affordable housing.
We're gonna have to have a lot of big sales. We don't have the, well,
You have time now.
So Kayam, am I saying that right? Online, you want to speak?
Yep, it's Kayam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name's Kayam. I'm a resident at 8 Jones Drive in Easthampton. Also coordinator of the Easthampton Housing Coalition and on the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. I want to echo some of the comments that have been said, both in person and I'm sure after me virtually. This project is an awesome synergy between affordable housing and conservation. I think in addition, it provides sort of a blueprint for sustainable development moving forward. It shows us some of the changes that we can make to our zoning ordinances to make development more feasible for affordable housing developers. And yeah, I'm just excited to see this in the city and excited to see the CPA committee also excited and just happy to see the enthusiasm. Thank you.
Max.
Hi, thanks. I also live on Jones Drive and just want to say that I'm excited for this project and I appreciate the CPA committee's ongoing support for affordable housing in Easthampton. Thanks.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to limit the discussion to the committee members. Discussion.
I have one question.
Andy.
When the original, we discussed this last month, you said this project is going to be in 2 phases. So can you kind of detail what the first phase and what the second phase would be? A rough idea. I mean, generally, I don't want to be here until 12 o'clock tonight.
No problem. The housing construction project will be, and we mentioned that in 2 phases. The first phase will be new construction of one of those 3 buildings that we showed you last time, and also the preservation and rehab of the existing 40-unit senior building that is on the adjacent site. And the second phase of construction would be the 2 remaining new construction buildings built.
So the first phase, you'd be asking, if you came back here for money for the first phase, you'd also be asking us for money to help existing building that's already there to help construct that, help renovate an existing building.
Yes, the funds would go to a phase that both preserves and produces affordable housing.
Any other committee members? Ken or John, do you have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. Greg.
I just want to say that I think it's a great project. And the adjective innovative was used, and I think it's a lot of talent to bring a successful innovation of affordable housing and conservation to the table. So I just want to laud like the fact that we have that kind of talent here in the Valley. It's really impressive. It's kind of an exciting project. I think people have said that, but the innovative quality of it is really amazing. And I think we'll have, just dividends for future projects that can model itself after this. So I'm excited about it.
Ken, I had to mute you, Ken, because for some reason I'm getting a lot of feedback. So put your mic back on.
Dan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I just wanted to remind you, Dan, that I'm using myself from this vote because 359 Main Street borders 85 Main. Although it doesn't look it, we own a lot of land here, and it's going to border the conservation piece of this project. We talked about it in the last meeting.
You're going to abstain.
I need to
just
recuse
be
myself. Abstain,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. He's an abutter. So he's. Anybody else on the committee? Then I'll take a motion to send to the full council an approval of $600,000 for the Kestrel Land Trust Community Builders application.
So moved as spoken.
And you're the second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion before us. Any further discussion? Jamie, you have to do a roll call.
Andy,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Joe's absent, John,
Aye.
Ken,
Say abstain.
Abstain.
Ken.
I did abstain. Sorry, I got the two words mixed up. Abstain.
Okay, turn your mic off, please. He's got something going on at his house. So this is approved. The next step, we have two counselors here. This is good, who are on the finance committee now. Hopefully they'll be on the finance committee. Your next step, it'll go to the city council at one meeting in January, hopefully the first meeting, and be sent to finance committee.
I talked to Omar, last week, and he'd like to have it go for the second meeting. First
Okay.
meeting is,
So that means if I were to give you timing, up to the new committee, if they set a public hearing, it would be in the first meeting in February when it would be finally approved. I hope that timing works for you. Okay. I can't guarantee that because I'm no longer the chair. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
So we're gonna go to Ferry Street. So if Ferry Street wants to sit where Julia was, that's fine. If Ferry Street is here, okay. Is everybody else staying? If you're going,
We're gonna want to hear about Ferry Street.
okay.
I expect the same round of support.
For more affordable
It
housing?
is.
Well, then, yes.
Jamie, we have two funding agreements in front of us.
Yes.
One is submitted by Jamie.
Don't pass that to them. They weren't here for last meeting. They want to allow them to tell these.
Jamie, which one of these is
Okay, so
yours?
they're both, titled 11, they're both exactly the same on the difference is in number 9. The one that has the strikeout is the one that I had first sent around, and the one without the strikeout, is the one that Richard had brought in. The difference is, really a question about when the $100,000 is able to be applied for, by the applicant to request the $100,000. And what protects the city's interests, what protects, what helps the developer get what they need to do. So if you want to, so the original, had read that the first $100,000, was payable after they received approval as an affordable line tech community and execute contracts with the housing and livable, executive office of housing and livable communities. And then the proposed change by Richard is that that would be payable upon the receipt of a commitment of funding from the Office of the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And that has to, I don't really understand the difference. So, maybe you can explain that.
Go ahead, Richard, explain the
why
difference.
The original one wasn't.
Richard Kingston, Oklahoma City, and again, I apologize for the last minute change and jamming up Jamie and the committee. It was not our intent. It was just to correct the language because there's just some programmatic issues. Number one, we can't agree to a deed restriction because we're not the owner of the property. But at the closing, the financial closing of the deal, HLC will require us to have a long-term deed restriction. So we're just changing the language to say that the $100,000 will request at the funding commitment from EOHLC. Which exciting news today, we were approved to submit our application in February. So first step is down. Great.
So just to clarify, so that $100,000, it's upon like your notice of award or
Correct.
not construction closing?
Right. Yeah. Notice of award, and then the $400,000 will be at the financial closing, which we anticipate being March 2025 at the earliest, maybe early 2026.
So that's a little different than I think that Peter Serafino presented last meeting. I thought he said at CO, which I thought was actually odd in my world of like that financing. So that's why.
Yeah, Rich and I did talk a little bit about that today, and we decided that it was having the $400,000 payment based off of when the building commissioner issues COs, and like really what the city's buying is the deed restriction. So
Correct.
It makes sense to have it tied to
Correct.
the filing
I
of the
also
deed
figured that
restriction.
was interest-free money for you to draw down earlier. I never understood why it was being tied to
Yeah,
the
I
CO
must have missed that, or I would have given Peter a little kick.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, is this being
No.
recorded? No.
I was curious.
Yes.
Sorry,
I want to
Peter.
learn more about that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that is a mistake. Yeah, it should be tied. to
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense to me. Makes
The deed restriction. You said you're not the owner, so you can't apply for a deed restriction.
Correct.
Is Mr. Michon the owner?
He is the owner until the financial commitments are in place, and then we'll have a long-term lease. And again, HLC will require us to have a long-term deed restriction at financial closing in order for us to receive the funds for the project.
I'm not sure I understand.
So Mr. Michon will have to put a deed restriction on the property in order for us to be funded for the affordable housing project at that time.
Michael, can you tell me that you're willing to do this? You have to turn your mic on, Mike.
Yeah, good evening all. I mean, that's correct. You know, as long as once they're approved and they get their funding, you know, they're off to the races, or we're off to the races together, I should say. It's a team effort, joint venture here. So, but not until then, because we couldn't obviously do a deed restriction if they don't have their permits and their funding in place.
And the city's protected in the sense that this last 400,000, they don't get it until the deed restriction is in place.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we just wanted to simplify the language and make it more palatable for everyone.
Is this okay with you, Jamie? I don't have a problem.
So I just want, the question has to do with the fiscal year split then, if that's the case. If they're asking for the entire 400,000 at construction closing, which is anticipated to be in March of 2025, we've got the split between two fiscal years. Does that jive?
Well, yeah, because what you're doing is you're setting it aside like we did for City Space. You're going to set up an account. I would imagine you should do this. Set up an account that is a reserved for the Ferry Street project, 200,000. So it cannot be used for anything else.
Okay.
And at the budget, you would put that in place like we did every budget year for City Space. So that means you're not going to hit your fiscal 25 with 400,000. You'll have 200,000 in place.
Okay.
So my understanding is that's the best fiscal practice. Scott.
Isn't it a little different though? Because with City Space, we put it aside, but it actually wasn't committed yet until we then later committed it. You know what I mean? When we
We
first
put it
started
into
setting
construction.
aside, it was more in a accounting, like this is actually, will be committed, you know, this is committing to it.
Well, it's
It might
committed
just be
to
more
it.
semantic, but it is a little
No,
different
no,
as far
this
as the
is-
mechanism that we're doing.
I think so, because also this has this language in here that it won't be paid until the
It
deed
has this
restrictions in place.
Yeah.
So it's,
All the 200,000 would do, by putting it in here, it's reminding the committee that you should set it aside at for your budget year, and then the final budget year. Now, as with all projects, if it doesn't come to play, that 400,000 doesn't go anywhere until they have the deed restriction.
So we have enough money to do all the set aside he's talking about.
Well, yeah.
Well, we did the last few years. I'm optimistic things are gonna turn around. So if they,
The motion is for $500,000 tonight.
yes.
Yes.
with 100,000 being paid out this fiscal year.
Right.
Is there a term for this deed restriction that we were talking about?
Permanent deed restriction. It says
99 permanent or?
this permanent deed restriction shall run with the land and shall be enforceable by the city. That's in the language, right?
I agree. I think
Because we got a long-term lease here, so we're talking about a 99 year, or we're talking about like this in perpetuity,
It's in perpetuity. So the deed, the lease expires in 20 years, which then the entire property reverts to us. So then the property will continue to be deed restricted for another 70 years. 79 years.
Sounds like 499 then.
It sounds like 99 years.
The CPA enabling legislation says permanent deed restriction when when a real property interest is acquired by CPA. So the courts have found that a permanent deed restriction is 99 years.
Yeah, correct.
So they're used interchangeably.
That's why I'm asking though, because I just wanted to know whether.
Well, we're very happy with
Permanent,
Jamie.
was-
I mean,
permanent, like I deal with endowments that are in perpetuity, and so, you know, like permanent is in theory, you know, permanent, but also only in theory, but you know, so I just wanted to know that we're talking about something that matched the length of the
Like
lease.
an open space preservation restriction that's in perpetuity is in perpetuity.
Right, and that's what I'm used
So-
to. So I just wanted,
Yeah.
it's just a clarifying
Well,
question.
99 years, I guess.
But
is what
for housing,
courts have said.
And HLC says kind of both, 99 years in perpetuity. So it's.
I won't be around, so it doesn't,
Either
but I just wanted to be
I
clear.
will be frozen, so it might be a chance.
So, just so we're clear on what we're doing tonight, we are approving a $500,000 appropriation to be paid for, with 100,000 coming out of FY '24 funds, the remainder to be paid when and if the deed restriction is granted. That would be the motion. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have questions, John or Ken? As Jeff mentioned the last time, what's good about this project is that permits are already in place. This can go forward, and I love it. And I'm appreciative of Mr. Michon for allowing this to keep going, and Ferry Street is gonna be hustling and bustling place now. So it's great. More affordable housing, so I just, since you're all gonna be on the committee, don't forget to put 200,000 aside, because you're making a commitment.
it'll be on all of the, those monthly
Anything else?
spreadsheets.
Then I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve $500,000 for the project at 11 Ferry Street.
With $100,000 coming out of fiscal year 24.
200,000, 25, and 200,000, 26. I'll see it.
I have to say that's, I think what you should say is the affordable to be with $100,000 going to FY '24. And $400,000 to be distributed once the deed restriction is in place.
I'll make that motion.
You got that, Jamie?
Possibly.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Jamie?
Andy,
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry.
Ken,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jay,
Aye.
Jessica. Aye. Joe. Not here. John.
Aye.
Ken,
Yes.
and Scott.
Aye. Did you say my name?
I put you down.
Okay, I say yes. To the end. Okay,
Yeah, we should let him vote on this last
I
one.
thought I said that. but
it's all right.
mine was-
1 foot out the door. Jamie's just voting for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank
community
you.
support, and city support.
Thank you. Again, this will go to the city council and you'll be notified when to appear before them.
Great, thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you
we'll
all.
have-
Thank you, Mike.
The last thing to talk about is the pool project. It has been, thank you, Mayor, reduced to 200,000 with the mayor. Can I ask, Mayor, does that mean that the balance that John needs will come out of free cash or some other funds later?
Yes. Free cash has been certified, so I'm not gonna.
You can't commit to it, but the point is, we reduced that so that we didn't spend everything out of undesignated. So there's gonna be 118,000 left. So this 200,000 helps. It'll put us up to 790,000 for the pool project, which is a pretty good appropriation, I think. Overall. John, do you want to say anything?
No, only thing I can add is we did have the bid opening on Friday. The apparent low bid is at 365. So down a little bit, but it's regardless. You guys are in for 200, and then the mayor's going to work with the other number to where we need to get on the pool project. I just want to take a quick moment to thank you, Dan, for all your support for the Park and Rec projects as a city councilor and as CPA chair. You've been a real ally for us in getting stuff done for the city within all the parks. So thank you.
You're welcome. We have a jewel of a park, Nonnetuck Park, that needs to be supported. Anybody have any questions? Committee members, any questions? Anybody? John or Ken, anything? I'll take a motion to send to the full council, city council, $200,000 to be approved for the Nonnetuck Park pool improvements.
So moved.
Second. The motion is second. Any further discussion?
None.
Hearing none. Jamie?
Andy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
John,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Scott,
Aye.
and Joe is absent. Joe.
Okay, thank you. Pool's done.
There you go.
Do we have someone from Lathrop here? Camilla?
Barbara.
Barbara?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me? Okay, all right. So, shall I start? Now, it says I can't share my screen. So Jamie, are you going to show my screen?
It's
Show
gonna
my slides?
it's gonna take a minute. Dan, do you have the presentations in the?
I will get them.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Continue support.
We got it?
I'm working.
Okay, take your time.
I don't see it.
It's in the Lathrop folder.
Oh, Lathrop, yeah.
Does it involve IPAs?
Not the proposal. You want the presentation.
Yeah, it's a presentation.
All right, give me a second. Do you see it there, Barbara?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so, I'm sorry?
Try to be brief if you can. It's late. And as I understand it, just so you know this, you're presenting this evening, but we're not going to be able to fund this until next fiscal year.
Will not be a problem.
Okay, so,
Invasive plants will still be there. So will we. So.
all right,
this-
go ahead.
All right, so this project is in controlling invasive plants and educated the public. Next. There are 4 things that are so special about this project. Next. Next. And the first one is that it preserves native habitat on ecologically valuable land. Next. So here is the Northampton campus outlined in black. You can see that it abuts the Fitzgerald Lake Conservation Area. Next. And here's the East Campus. So we are presenting then for invasives removal on both our North and our East campuses, and we will apply to Northampton for some funding as well as to you. So this is the next parcel that we will address. It has a CR that is managed by or owned by the city of Northampton at the top there across the property, or across the city line, and then 78 acres held by the Kestrel Land Trust. And this 78 acres is quite new. We've just put it in, and it's beautiful land, as you will see. Next, and this is how beautiful it is. This is Bassett Brook, which runs to the Manhan on our land, and this is the land which we're trying to protect for wildlife. Next. It's a mosaic of forest, meadows, streams, vernal pools, and wetlands. Next. It is home to the wood turtle, who is registered. That is a species of special concern in the state. Next. Here's another picture of some of our wetland. Beautiful. Next. One of our registered vernal pools. Next. And our meadows. Next. The East Campus lies over the Barnes Aquifer. Next. And this is the North Campus, Pine Brook. Next. Which has a little waterfall on it. Next. So this is ecologically valuable land, and it's beautiful land. But it faces a crisis, and that is invasive plants, and that's what we're trying to do. So next. So this picture was taken in 2014 when we began work about invasives on our land. Everything that you see there that is a color is invasive. The pink is burning bush, and the green is shrub honeysuckle. There's also bittersweet in there and some other things. This is a forest that's being taken over. This is the same thing on the North Campus, although we also have Japanese barberry on the East Campus. So that green underneath the bent tree, excuse me, that's Japanese barberry. Next. And this is what happens to a forest. And there's some around here, right close, when Japanese barberry takes over. There is very little wildlife in here except mice and the ticks that feed on them. That's what could happen. So invasives are bad for these. Here's 2 statistics. 94% of terrestrial birds need insects, not just berries and nectar to raise their young. And 90% of insects need native plants to survive. So no insects, no native plants, no insects, no birds. It's just that simple. A forest dominated by invasives may have up to 90% less wildlife than forests dominated by natives. And this comes right out of the research literature. Next. What invasives do is they've left behind in their native land the competitors and enemies that keep them in check. So they run amok, crowd out native plants, change things around them, and yet they don't serve wildlife. Next. Invasives are a major contributor to the precipitous decline in birds, pollinators, and other wildlife, and they're rapidly spreading, including in the valley. So that's why, number 2, this project addresses a crisis. The third point, it builds on past success and community involvement. Next. So here we are in 2014, starting our work removing invasives on the East Campus. And I like to call this the hi ho, it's off to work we go. Looks like the picture of the 7 dwarfs. These are residents going out to cut invasive plants. And this is a professional from Land Stewardship, Inc., cutting a humongous multiflora rose on our land, paid for by resident contributions. And here's the success. You saw this picture on the left before with the maple tree in the middle right. And now you see the same maple tree. The invasives are gone, and the native winterberry can now thrive and do what it's supposed to do, which is to support our native wildlife. Next. And here's the barberry on the North Campus, and the same thing is happening to the barberry on the East Campus. Under the bent tree is the barberry. You saw that before, and now it's dead, and the natives are coming in. Next slide. And you see the same dead barberry and the same bent tree. You see the very bottom of it, the back. And now what can you identify here? You see ferns, jack in the pulpit, wild strawberry, Solomon's seal, all native plants. In addition to addressing our wildlands, some residents have changed their gardens to native plants, and some lanes have changed their common spaces to native plants. This is an all native plant garden paid for and installed by residents in one of our lanes. So we want to move this project ahead. We've been working since 2014 and we've had a lot of success, but there's much to do, and that will become apparent in just a minute. Our project is based on thorough planning. The last 2 years, we've had Land Stewardship, Inc. conduct a thorough inventory and recommend treatments and priorities and a timeline of tasks with the cost estimates. And that's the last, I don't know what, 20 pages or so of our proposal, is that recommendation from LSI to us based on their careful inventory, actually walking the land. So here's one page from that proposal. It's the East Campus. Outlined in white are the 2 CRs. The North CR is the Northampton at the top. That's held by the city of Northampton. But the Easthampton portion is those 2 pieces at the bottom. That's our 78 acres of CR. And you can see this map shows the density of invasives of any kind. So you can see that there is some green, and that's the least dense, 1 to 5% invasives. That's huge, given how invaded the surrounding property is. And then it goes all the way down through yellow, orange, and to red, which is not good at all. So what you're finding here is that it's spotty, and our goal is to bring everything up to a level where we can manage it as one piece. That's the North Campus. And then here's this little fox. This treatment of our land, both the residential and the wild areas, puts us in the forefront of conservation thinking today, where we view our land, residential and undeveloped, as a single ecosystem that must serve the needs of both humans and wildlife. And this fox only knows that on this land, it has to find food and cover and a place to raise its young. Next. This is a resident map made by residents showing where on our residential areas of our campus the bittersweet is located. And this map was the basis of work by about 10 North Campus residents this past summer, removing our invasives. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep on going with that work. Next. So the Lathrop has an ongoing structure for long-term follow-up. We have our Land Conservation Committee with 30 resident members. We raise $6,000 to $9,000 a year in donations for residents, plus we get grants. And environmental stewardship is a main area for strategic planning. So you might ask, well, since everything else is so invaded, are these efforts futile? And the answer is, we can't stop all invasives, and we can't stop all poverty, and we can't stop all crime, you know, but we do our own part in our own sphere. And that's what we're about at Lathrop, to provide habitat refuge for the wildlife that we love. And here we are, putting our backs, our old backs, right into the job, removing invasives on our own campus. And we seek help with that project. Thank you.
So, looking at the application, you're asking for $99,000.
Yes.
Wait a minute. I don't think the committee can act on this until July. Everybody in agreement with that? I don't know what to tell you, Barbara. Unfortunately, we're out of money right now. But I think it's I apologize, Dan. It's a valuable project. So I don't think the committee, and I recommend you do not commit to anything until you see where we are with our budget in July.
Yeah, I understand.
But, and the committee may decide in the future that they have to prioritize their decision-making based on projects they may get over the years out of affordable housing coming our way. So
When do we start our budget process?
Usually in January or February. So there's usually, the city council gets the mayor's final version in like April or May. We have to get it with the departments, and then there's that whole process.
And in terms of process, even if the committee wanted to move earlier, like say we know what our budget numbers are and we would like to move it forward, council can't do anything about it. Like we could send it, but council can't vote on it or anything until the fiscal year, correct?
no, until July.
You could do it the same way that you did the Ferry Street project, where future fiscal year's funds are committed.
Yeah, I get a little nervous
Yeah.
about doing that unless we know how much money we
I
actually
think
have.
what you may have to
Rightfully
wait
so.
for, if I
But you
might,
can do it.
is where we are at the end of the fiscal year with regard to this year's revenues. Because Jamie's gonna base it conservatively on what she's been told, what, 250 for the whole year, and you're budgeted 194 or something.
That's
Whatever.
a local or state match? That's the state
That's
match.
the
I mean, it's the whole thing, because we're also estimating what the local revenue.
Right, now local revenues may be down, so. Scott.
Barbara, thank you for this presentation. One question I have is, it seems like a fair amount of this is going to be done in Northampton, and you mentioned going to the Northampton CPA Committee, and I wanted to kind of know the status of that.
They have twice yearly submission process, and we will submit at the very next opportunity, which will be in February. And you'll see that we're asking them for, what is it, 19,000, something like that.
Why 19,000 for them and 99 for us?
Because the Easthampton portion is much bigger in terms of acreage.
Okay. All right, well, committee, we are informed.
Yeah.
It's about all we could do now is be informed, Barbara. And Jamie will keep you abreast of what's going on with our budget.
Okay, we will still be here, the invasives will still be here, and we will be back.
So would she come back in like July to repitch?
So I think that's our next
Yeah, I
discussion.
mean, I think before you end this, you should give some direction as to where this is continuing. Is it continuing to the January meeting, or is it continuing to a June meeting so it can be approved in July, or like May? Like, where's this?
So that's the next item on the agenda, right? Is discussion of grant application schedule. I mean, I think we need.
I have something to say about that.
So.
You know, there's a surprise.
Good. I was worried you're gonna go out quietly. But I mean, but Barbara, unfortunately, your timing is not great in that this is the first time, at least in 6, 7, as long as I've been on there, probably 10 years, that we've been out of money. So it's unfortunate that that's the case because this is a worthy project. We're in the process of figuring out how we're dealing with that. So the chair, Dan, is right in that we wouldn't be doing anything until July. But as far as what your next steps would be, we haven't quite determined that yet.
Okay, well, I will wait to hear what I should do next. You'll note that we submitted for a project that wouldn't start until July anyway, because July of 2024, July is a better time to address invasives than early in the spring. So, we'll still be here, as I say, and so will the invasives.
So we probably should push it to a July meeting because if we want to get it approved, the best time to treat things is before,
Right,
August.
right. And so
June.
okay, so
maybe
an
June meeting.
You
appropriation.
should do a June meeting so it goes to the city council.
Does
It
city
won't get
council-
approved unless
The city council
August.
typically meet twice or once in June.
once in July,
This
So-
year we met twice, but.
not in July, you didn't. You did?
Well, so the budget's typically set by March. We know we have an estimate and that's what carries through.
In March, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we're getting for next year.
We'll have an idea of what we're estimating for next year.
But again,
But
within.
And we know that right off the bat,
Set aside.
we know that right off the bat, there's gonna be 200,000 that's already committed for
Right,
Perry Street.
right,
There'll be
right,
discussions we had about Old Town Hall, whether or not there's,
Yeah, they'll be
Yeah.
back. Because that's.
right, and then this next one would be $99,000, but it's split over 3 years. So is that $33,000 a year?
Is
You
it
know.
split over 3 years? I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's a 3-year project.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
All right,
well,
that's
that's a
helpful.
little easier, 33 a year.
So, if the committee feels in May that you can make an appropriation of $33,000 for July and then,
I think
But
this
like-
is rushing. I
Right.
really feel like
We need to-
sort
We
of
need a
digest this
comprehensive
and-
process
and-
here.
Yeah, and come up with a plan of attack in January. I think the majority of our meeting in January will be really kind of hashing out our process for the next 6
In
months.
fact, I don't think we
Barbara.
actually take any applications. I don't think we have any. I think we could make it solely about that because we can't act on anything.
Yeah, right.
Let me just
So
say,
yeah, Barbara, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we should probably let Barbara go.
I'm still the chair for a few more minutes.
Sure.
I would like to end this meeting and ask you to discuss grant applications, policies at your next meeting. I think you should have an in-depth discussion, maybe bring Hadel back and make those decisions. If you're gonna do quarterly, which I think is a good idea, January is the first month of the first quarter. So you would, January, February, March, you would make decisions. If you have any to make, given our budget. But if you don't mind, I'm not feeling great and I'd like not to have this grant application discussion tonight. That's
No problem.
Plus it affects the next committee and I'm not on it, which is sad. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I have felt so comfortable at these meetings. Not always at city council meetings, but comfortable because you're all very reasonable, very practical, and you need to keep it that way. Because we're dealing with taxpayer funds, but we're dealing with the kind of, I was just talking this over with the mayor and I'd love to have a conversation with you. We started this in 2001. That's when the CPA was formed, was approved for Easthampton. The CPA has probably approved over $50 million in money. There's $4 million right now out. I would say we probably approved $10-20 million in those 20 some years. So this is a worthy committee to be on, and none of these projects, pools, affordable housing, anything we want historic, none of that would ever be able to be funded without the CPA. So if people want to say, what's the CPA done for me? Tell them to look out the window. Seriously. And I want to thank you all. I appreciated this very much.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Thanks for your leadership, Dan. It's been a better committee for you.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie?
Andy, aye. Dan,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jay,
Why don't you adjourn? Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
John,
Yes.
Ken.
Ken?
Yes, yes.
Hey, I'm trying.
Thank you all.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.